Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Young again on Thursday. Welcome to our weekly webinars from 1 until 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. And as you know by now, I try to bring you people, topics, products that you might be interested in your veterinary industry or the veterinary world. And last week we spoke about attitudes, entitlement issues. Before that, we talked about people problems in your work. Next week, we have somebody speaking about financial investment. And so it's a mishmash of things. And today I'm really excited to be talking with Ingrid King. She used to be a veterinary manager, and she's a certified veterinary journalist and author of 5 books and award-winning publisher of her website called The Conscious Cat. And we just met last year actually at one of the veterinary conferences and just had some good stories to share. So today I just wanted to have a conversation with her, and it's about how pets help us find our bliss, or how animals can teach and guide us. And it's just a conversation between the two of us. So thank you for being here today. And I'm going to just turn it over to Ingrid right now so that she can give us a little bit more background on her. And then I'll ask her some questions. And if you have questions, if you can just type your question into the chat box that should be there on the right-hand side of your screen, and then I will relay those messages for her. Ingrid is on her iPad today, and I don't think that she can actually see the chat box at all. So welcome, Ingrid. I am so excited that you're here today. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me.
Thank you for having me, Heike. I'm excited to be here too, because this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And the best way I can explain why is to talk a little bit about my background. In another life, I worked in corporate America. I worked for a financial services company for 15 years. And while I was good at my job and I enjoyed the people I worked with, it was not feeding my soul, for lack of a better word. I just realized that I needed to find something that was going to do more than just pay the bills. So, this is where the animals come in. As I was going through this period of trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, one of my cats at the time, his name was Phoebe, became ill, and he developed bladder stones, and I ended up spending a lot of time in veterinary hospitals while he was being diagnosed and while he was getting treatment. And one day I found myself sitting in the waiting room of the veterinary clinic, and I just kind of looked around and I thought, I wonder what it would be like to work in an environment like that. So the thought wouldn't let go. So I ended up putting out some feelers. We did a little bit of research, and then one day I saw an ad for a veterinary hospital manager at a clinic near me. And I thought, oh my God, that would be perfect because it would allow me to combine my background in administrative management and my love for animals and apply it to this job offering. So I went for the interview. The clinic owner and I had a great rapport. But I realized toward the end of the interview that one of the things I had not researched was the salaries for veterinary hospital managers. And when she told me what she was offering at the time, it simply wasn't enough to live on for me. So I went home. I was disappointed. I felt like I had to regroup. But at the same time, I knew that the veterinary profession was something that I wanted to explore further. So I ended up working part-time. What I ended up telling her was, well, I can't afford to work for you, but would you let me volunteer? And I started volunteering at her clinic. And one of the technicians there took me under her wing and taught me everything from how to clean cages to setting up fecals to, all the little, everything involved in, helping out at a veterinary clinic. And I loved it. I could not wait to get home from my day job and go to the clinic and start start working there. I ended up working there on weekends. And eventually I ended up going part-time at my corporate job and increased the hours at the clinic. And after doing that for a few months, I realized I was working pretty much 7 days a week. I never had a break. And the only time it bothered me was when I was at my corporate job. When I was at the veterinary clinic, I never felt like I was working. I just absolutely loved everything about it. So in 1998, I made the leap. There was an opening for a veterinary hospital management position at a clinic a little bit further away from home, but still close enough. And I took the job and I worked there for 8 years, and I just absolutely loved it. In 2006, I decided it was time for another change, and it was yet again another animal that sort of prompted me along to make the change, and that was my office cat, Buckley. She was a little tortie who was the office cat at the animal hospital I ran at the time. And she actually ended up being the inspiration for one of my books, Buckley's Story, Lessons from a Feline Master Teacher. This little cat, I don't know if the people listening know a whole lot about tortoiseshell cats, but they do have a very unique personality that's also known as tortitude, which is actually what my newest book is about. But Buckley had it in spades. She was one of the most freedom-loving creatures I ever met. And something about this love for freedom and being able to do what she wanted to do when she wanted to do it started to rub off on me. And I decided I wanted to start my own business. So something I had been thinking about for a while at that point was becoming a Reiki practitioner. And for those of you that don't know what Reiki is, it's an energy therapy. And I eventually left my job at the animal hospital and did the Reiki full time. As part of that new business, I started writing a newsletter, and I realized that I really love to write. And from there on, I sort of evolved into the next incarnation and became a full-time writer, which is what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. And Buckley's Story was my first book. Then I wrote Purse of Wisdom, Conscious Living Feline Style, which is a collection of stories about how animals enrich our lives and teach us lessons in finding our bliss, living a happier life. I then wrote a collection of stories from my years in the veterinary profession that I titled Adventures in Veterinary Medicine, what working in veterinary clinics taught me about life, love, and myself. Again, you get the theme here. It's all about lessons from the animals. So that's kind of the long answer to your question.
I have to unmute myself. Otherwise, when I'm writing and taking notes, it'll pop back to me. So that's just an awesome, awesome background. So tell me a little bit about when you said feeding my soul. How do animals feed your soul?
There is something about the way animals open your heart that to me resonates in a way that few other things can. I think it's probably the way they love us unconditionally that sort of accomplishes that. I to go through life without living consciously, without really embracing life fully. And for me, cats have been the catalyst to making that happen.
Nice. So when you were working at the veterinary clinic, did you feel like your soul was still being fed by the animals, by being surrounded by animals day in and day out, even though you had a manager's position in the vet clinic and you weren't like a technician or a veterinary assistant who got to, hold the animals and be actually part of the whole healing process? Did you feel that working in a veterinary environment as a practice manager still gave you that 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 soul connection that you were looking for in animals?
I did. Because even though I was also doing, mundane, boring things like, bookkeeping and human resources management and financial reporting, the animals were why I was doing it. And I think that was the big difference between doing the same types of tasks in a corporate setting versus doing them at a veterinary clinic. I felt like I was still a part of, the mission that we had as a clinic to heal animals, to help owners with sick animals understand how they could care for them, to educate owners. And even though I wasn't always doing all of that myself, I was a part of it.
Mm-hmm. So Michelle just asked, how did you manage not letting their pain be overwhelming to you?
I don't know that I always managed it. I mean, there were days where, I drive home crying, wondering whether I could go back in the morning. Um, I think it's probably, it's the balance between, for every sad euthanasia that you deal with, there's also a cute kitten or puppy that comes in. And it's kind of, I mean, it sounds really trite to say it's that circle of life thing, but we do see it all in veterinary clinics, and I think it's reminding yourself during the darker times that it's not always like that.
Right, absolutely. So, yeah, I just had to remember and remind myself that not everybody on this call today is actually from the veterinary industry or has a background in the veterinary industry, because some of your followers are also on this call today, which thank you for being here and welcome. So we might get some questions that the people who are in the veterinary industry day in and day out don't even remember anymore. So when you think about animals and what they teach us and how they guide us, what are some of the big bullet points, big lessons that you've learned from animals?
Well, I think the most important one is that animals live in the moment. They don't waste time worrying about the future. They don't spend a whole lot of time dwelling on what happened to them in the past. They're all about the now. And, it's something that I try to emulate, but, I'm a fallible human being, so I don't always do it. But I think that's probably one of the main lessons that animals teach me over and over again.
Yep, I love that. So when you are in the vet clinic or any place, and your cat or your dog or your horse says, don't do that. They'll give you a little bit of warning, but then it's like, hey, I said don't do that. It's an instant feedback.
Right.
With
Yeah,
a horse,
exactly.
sometimes a little bit more painful than with a dog or a cat. I've been chomped on, by cats numerous times, and I always thought, there was that feedback. There was that swishing of the tail. Had I just stopped and stepped back instead of just, being so focused on what I wanted to achieve, if I had just spent time in the moment, like you said, I would have recognized that the cat was getting upset with me, but life would have just stood still for a second, and we're always so go, 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 getting the clients in, getting the clients out, dealing with problems, trying to get the solutions. So yeah, I love that. There's another question here. I know you can't see that. Do you help in cat rescues? If so, how?
I'm not directly involved with any rescue right now, but I try to participate in fundraisers when rescue groups are holding fundraisers, either participating as a guest or a speaker, or I donate autographed copies of my books. I have such admiration for people who can work in rescue day after day after day. I think it has to be even more difficult than working in a veterinary clinic.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we got a couple more responses here. Love this topic. My dog's blog is all about living in the moment, from Amelia. So if you want to let us know what blog that is, Amelia, we'd probably love to go there and read it. And then Barbara said, I agree, cats live in the moment, but do you think they feel grief when they lose a mate or a human?
I think they do. I think our animals and cats especially are sensitive creatures, and I think they feel a lot more than we give them credit for. Um, I've certainly come across stories of cats grieving the loss of either a human or a feline companion to the point where they actually refuse to eat or get sick. So yes, I do think that's a very real thing.
And I think it's important. I think it's you were talking about the circle of life. You know, you help with the euthanasias, and then you see a puppy or a kitten, and you know that's the circle of life. But the other part of life is that natural up and down. It can't all be happiness and feeling great. You do have to get down to that low point in your life, and grieving is part of that. And I think it's the same for animals, so that you can experience joy to a much greater level. Then the other thing that I think I've figured out as a veterinarian is that it's easier for animals to deal with death than for us. So, for instance, if you were to take an old animal away from home, from his buddies, and euthanize it in the clinic, and then not have his buddies see that animal deceased, I think that's harder for them to deal with than if they actually get to walk around that animal or be present when their spirit is no longer here on this world. I think it just gives them that closure, for lack of a better word, so they can go, oh, you know, he's no longer here. It's not like he left me, if that makes sense. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know it's a bit controversial. Some people say you should let your surviving animal see the body of the animal that's passed over, and others say you shouldn't. I've, the two cats I had that passed away when I had another cat at the same time, I've always let them see the body. In one case, when Buckley was euthanized, Amber was actually present, and that was a really amazing experience because I actually think Amber was almost, I call it holding the space. It was almost like her quiet presence just sort of made the whole experience very peaceful. And I actually think she knew before my vet and I did, that Buckley's spirit had left her body. It was a very interesting experience because afterwards she wanted nothing to do with Buckley's body. I think she already knew that that wasn't Buckley anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I've seen that. I agree with that. I've seen that a lot too, when I thought that, oh my gosh, if one of my animals passes away, the other one is going to be heartbroken. But then they were just like, oh, okay, you know, it's done with, moving on. So I think, you know, different personalities in animals really change the grieving process also. So I have another question for you. As far as, Bliss, how can cats help us find bliss in our personal and professional life?
Well, for starters, I think they're good for our health. There are plenty of studies that have shown that sharing life with a cat, lowers your blood pressure, reduces your risk of heart attack. Um, I think they just enrich our lives. I mean, to me, my cats are my family. I live alone, and my cats are my children. And I absolutely don't feel pathetic for saying that. That is just, that's how it is. And I know I would venture to say most of my followers feel the same way. I think it's, again, sounds so trite, but the unconditional love that they have for us is just so amazing. And it's just something that we get from probably very few people in our lives. If we're lucky, our parents love us unconditionally, but even that is not always the case. So it's just such a special relationship.
Yep, absolutely. And then what you said earlier, they live in the moment, and I think they help us live in the moment too. When you're sitting there on the couch, and then all of a sudden, your cats just start running around, going crazy and chasing those midnight ghosts, I call them. You're like, what happened? And you can't help it. You
Yeah,
have to live in the moment. Everything just stops. I
yeah,
don't care what you were doing. If you were deep in thoughts, working on your taxes, or you're watching TV, or you're trying to, work on your blog. When they do that, it's just, you have to stop. Um,
absolutely.
yep, definitely. Um, then the other question I have, you are more of a cat person. There's always are you a cat person or are you a dog person? I think everybody's a little bit more one way or the other, and you're definitely a cat person. So how do you know how that evolved? Do you know why that is?
Um, I think, well, I don't know that I can really explain it. I think the explanations are more like, trying to figure it out. I've always been drawn to cats, even as a little kid. I think what draws me to cats is just their strong sense of independence. I can just really relate to that because that's kind of what I'm all about. So I think I like this idea of I'm going to do what I want when I want it. And I think that's one of the things that I love so much about cats. And I don't get me wrong, I like dogs a lot. It's just I can't quite relate to them in the same way as I can relate to cats.
Right. I think if you're an animal lover, you're an animal lover. If you,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think so too.
So, but you have a tendency to lean one way or the other. So tell us a little bit more about your website, because it is called The Conscious Cat. And
Uh-huh.
it might be of interest to the people on here from the veterinary industry. I know that the people on here who are your followers, they just love it and they listen to you, read your blogs all the time. But can you, for those of us who don't, or for those on here on the call who don't know anything about your website yet, can you tell us a little bit about your website?
Sure. The Conscious Cat is dedicated to conscious living, health, and happiness for cats and their humans. I update at least once a day, sometimes a couple times a day, and we feature articles about feline health, nutrition, behavior, lifestyle. I review cat from rights to that feature cats. I've even recently gotten a couple of romance novels that feature cats. So it's a comprehensive resource about all things cat. My healthcare articles, my nutrition articles, my behavior articles are all really well researched. And the site really has become kind of the go-to site for people who are looking for accurate and factual information about cats.
Excellent. And so, you always hear the Dr. Google, and if you talk to your vet and you go into the office and you say, well, but on Conscious Cat, Ingrid was talking about blah, blah, blah. How do you get around that?
Well, I feel like I can really speak to that since I've been on the other side of the curtain, so to speak. I've actually am very well respected in the veterinary community. Veterinarians are realizing that the information on my site is accurate and factual. Not everybody agrees with everything I write about. I come at things from a holistic, integrative angle, and some conventional vets may not agree with everything I write about. But earned the respect of the veterinary community. I'm actually just recently was invited to serve on the advisory council for the American Association of Feline Practitioners Cat-Friendly Practice Program. I too suffer from the Dr. Google syndrome, because I have people come to me and go, I just read this online and it said, you know, something really off the wall. So I actually, I'm hoping that I'm an ally for all the veterinarians out there who are battling against Dr. Google by at least directing people to the right and the correct information, and offering that information on my site.
Excellent, perfect, thank you. I had one more question on here, and I didn't want to skip it over because it's actually a good question about the benefits of owning pets, what they can do for us physically and emotionally. And David said, we know the benefits, so how can we promote this and increase the number of adoptions? Got any input on that?
Yeah, I think we can promote it by sharing our experiences. You know, I think stories are powerful, and I think if we, you know, share stories about how cats have enriched our lives, you know, whether it's through a blog or whether it's on social media or, you know, at adoption events or at other pet-related events, I think it's, you know, I think a story is more powerful than a study. I mean, yeah, I can tell you that there's studies that say, you know, owning a cat reduces your rate of a heart attack by 40%. Okay, that's awesome. But I think it's a lot more powerful if I say, you know, at the end of a really long day, you know, I lie down with my cats, they're purring next to me, and all of a sudden, all the stress and the tension of the day falls away from me. I think that is a lot more powerful than just the quoting a study. So I think it's just getting the word out there, sharing our experiences.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And Michelle put your website up, consciouscat.net.
Oh, thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, so thank you for that. We have just a couple of minutes left. So when you were in corporate America, did you have a cat? Did you have cats then?
Yes, I had my cat Phoebe was my first cat. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Any other questions that you want to ask? We only have about 2 minutes left. So if you have any questions, just type them into the chat box. I kind of got off of the subject of dying and euthanasias and grieving just because I thought we had enough of that. So, but if you have, you know, if you want to discuss that some more, you can email to Ingrid or myself. Ingrid, what is your email address for the people to get in touch? It's
ConsciousCat.
I'm sorry?
ConsciousCat@cox.net. Or you can just contact me through my website, which is consciouscat.com.
Okay, we'll do that. That'll be easier. So just, is it consciouscat.com or is it consciouscat.net?
I lost you.
Oop, did I lose you?
It's either way, either one.
Oh, it is either com or net?
Yeah, I own both, yeah.
Okay, excellent, perfect, I love that. So get in touch with Ingrid there. If you want to get in touch with me, here is my email address. And if you want us to do this again and answer some more questions, have another conversation, just email me and we'll try to do it. So you have a lot of followers. They count on your site for healthcare information, which is great. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ingrid. This was lovely.
My pleasure.
Would love to do this again with you sometime. Maybe we'll do it towards the summer again. And yes, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for being on here. Again, every Thursday between 1 and 1:30, we have these webinars, and you never know what's going to be showing up. So hope to see you again, and have a great rest of this week. Bye-bye.